time to fuel your business success. Welcome to Harmonious at Lunch. We're bringing you bite-sized advice and expert conversations to drive clarity and growth 5 days a week. Make sure you join our Facebook group at humanoff.com/lunch, where listeners like you and our guests hang out so we can find harmony in business together. If you're building a business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today's episode, I think, is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about what it takes and what it looks like to start from zero and grow a business. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are established entrepreneurs, been in business a while, you have teams, but what if we just relook at our business from this mindset of starting from zero, starting something from nothing and creating a multiple 7 or 8 figure plus business? I think that's a fun idea. Let's dive in. Victor Vauss, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Hey, Brandon, thanks a bunch. Yep, that's something that I lived through the hard way. And sort of what I try to do now is pay it forward and hopefully get people up and running in months instead of years or decades.
Yeah.
I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, no, I was going to say, I think it's kind of an interesting time in the marketplace, in the world, because it almost is like starting from zero with the evolution of AI. I mean, just a couple of years ago at this point, we had a basic chat GPT, and now we have agents, we have very advanced LLMs. I mean, there's so many things going on in the world of AI that it is a totally new landscape. And I think this mindset really does apply. Starting from zero, that might be the only type of business that survives, that starts from, air quotes, zero, and takes a fresh look at what they're doing. What's your take on that, actually going from zero to 8-figure plus business?
So definitely two approaches to what you just said. One, if you have an existing business as opposed to, no business at all. But either way, a lot of the foundational stuff is going to be the same. I mean, what AI, like you said, what AI has allowed us to do is, even create products from nothing very rapidly, especially as people in general get more accustomed to purchasing, digital products, not just say streaming media, but books, courses, guides, all these kinds of things. And AI just, obviously rapidly produces, or at least co-produces, this kind of content. And that's a lot of times what I recommend for people that are going nothing. I mean, you've never done anything. Say you've never made an online sale. You have no idea where to start, for example. Going digital is usually what I recommend, because you can demand test it. I mean, you can have something out there ready to demand test in possibly hours. I mean, obviously you're not going to have a full funnel, but TikTok's full of people. Oh, you can have something set up in 10, 20, 30 minutes. You can't open a bank account in 30 minutes. Don't give me that. But my point is a demand test where you just like, you have an idea, or maybe you put together a couple page PDF that you do with GPT, and you put some posts on Reddit or Quora, or, hit up some friends or wherever you can think of to find your target. That's all you got to do. I mean, you can use Sendal or something like that to throw together just a checkout link, basically, and you can get all this kind of stuff done super fast. Are you going to put something together that'll scale super fast? No. I mean, you got to lay the foundation, and that takes, a good solid scaling foundation takes a couple of months to kind of set up. But you can get out there and demand test something pretty quickly. And by demand test, I mean, this is something that's imperative. If you don't have a lot of resources, you need to go out there and figure out if someone's going to click buy on what you have to sell. And the approach I always say for that is niche down, not up. The adage in marketing is like, if you try to sell to everyone, you end up selling to nobody. So get hyper specific. For example, like, don't say my guide's going to help you gain muscle. You can be like, are you 25-year-old hard gainer? Well, I'll help you put 2 inches on your bicep in 6 weeks. It's just much more specific, and your audience is much more specific. Your audience is more specific. Your language is more specific. And the more specific you get, the more likely you are to convert. Now, you may think, oh, well, how many 25-year-old hard gainers that want 2 inches of bicep are there? How can I turn this into something 8 figures? there might not be enough, but it doesn't matter because you can sell adjacent products, you can create new product lines, you can branch out. But what matters is getting started, getting demand tested, and making that first sale. And AI, especially if you're doing digital products, really helps accelerate that process.
Yeah, and I think with the acceleration and the speed too, I mean that's a very niche example, but you could just as easily with the same tools you created that whatever that is, that product, that ebook service, you could just find out all the other benefits and remarket it to a different vertical. And this is the
Yep.
same for an existing business. If you're listening to this, you have an existing business and you have a product that's working, you want to scale into a new vertical, you still have to demand test it. Like I would never advise you just launch an entirely new vertical ad campaign without any testing. You can do that with what you're already doing, but with the use of these tools and again with this mindset. So I think, but like you said, the principles are constant. The principles of scaling and building a true business are constant. We are neither of us are advertising. You go just spam the marketplace with products and services. That's not what this episode is about at all. So, Victor, I'm curious to dive into kind of your experience and your path here, starting from zero, building an 8-figure business. It's impressive. It's rare. Walk me through what you did to get there and what those early days looked like.
Yeah, so the early days involved a lot of learning. I learned a lot about conversion rate optimization, and conversion rate optimization is essentially learning about heuristics or the human hindbrain, how it operates. So I learned a lot about psychology, a lot about marketing automation because I was already working in marketing automation. I was freelancing as email marketing automation, basically email SMS. So I knew about marketing automation, and I knew basic stuff. This was back before you could basically tell AI to build you a landing page. You know, I had to build my own landing page, basically, and those kinds of things.
What was it
But
like in
yeah,
the Stone Age, Victor? What?
I know here I am talking about what 7 or 8 years ago. Maybe Gen Z was still in grade school maybe, but but yeah. So I was putting together all this stuff and had this idea, and it wasn't a digital product; it's a physical product. But I knew my audience was on Reddit. That was one of the places that I knew that the kind of hardcore people that would be interested were there. So I set up a pre-order system. It was really basic. All it was designed to do is just verify the credit card, and I started seeing if people would convert, and they did. They started to convert. So I set up a Discord for people that were pre-order to keep the hype because I had to build up enough pre-orders over months to have enough money to launch the product because I didn't. I had a couple $100, like that was it. So I just kind of kept going. You have to be flexible. Like as times change or things change, and just because people like that product, I had to pivot it a little bit. There was aspects of it about that people didn't care at all about, and another aspect that they really cared about. So I just swapped, um, and some positioning and changes. And if you have an established business, um, don't forget that you can make minor tweaks, like Brandon was saying, and sell to adjacent or completely new audiences. So, for example, in my prior, hyper specific muscle gain product, you could flip it around and maybe sell it to, retirees, even, to help their metabolism, or for lots of different ways that you can rework and reword existing products that you're already adept at making to sell to adjacent audiences or new audiences. So anyway, got off topic a little bit there, but yep, just kept building the pre-orders. And one of the things that I knew from past experience working with smaller brands was that I made sure that my systems would not collapse at scale. What I mean by that is take what you're doing right now and think to yourself, okay, if I had 10 times the amount of customers tomorrow, is my systems going to handle that, or is everything going to collapse? Everything should not collapse. If it will, then you're not ready for scale, and you should fix that problem first. And so what I did was I set everything up for scale so that by the time I started throwing money at ads, I was ready and I could handle the volume. And that's how I was able to scale so quickly.
Yeah, that's first of all, that's a great tip right there. And I know on a couple episodes ago, um, we had we had a guest who talked about the difference between growth and scale, and there's a very distinct difference, and his words were, the difference in growth and scale is the ability to separate your revenue from your expenses. So if your revenue grows at 10x and your expenses grow at 10x, you're just growing, you're not scaling. It's like Victor said, if you can 10x your orders, your revenue, whatever that may be, and your expenses don't also go up at the same rate, at the same percentage, then you have scalability. So don't break yourself when you do that. But I find this fascinating too when you talk about you know, demand testing and going to the marketplace. You said you had a very little budget. For people who do want to go test the marketplace, well, another thing you said too is your target market was on Reddit. So what did your marketing or lead gen, so to speak, look like in those days? How did you actually find this target market, go approach them, introduce your offer, and then have them actually say yes with a credit card?
Yeah, great question. So at the time, Reddit only had one type of ad. It was a text ad with a link, and that's what I did. I ran text ads on
Really?
Reddit because it was very simple at the time, especially, and very cheap. They had just rolled out a self-serve ad campaign. While I have knowledge of pay-per-click, I am not a media buyer. I don't sit at and look at spreadsheets all day. It would drive me crazy. I didn't have the money to pay for, a qualified Facebook, media buyer, nor did I know if it would convert. So I was running Reddit ads at like pennies. And because it was a pre-order and I wasn't actually taking their money, just, soft check on the credit card, it lowered friction. And they're just hitting a landing page and just hitting the concept. Here's this product. It really aligns with what you like. In fact, you're going to be able to have a say in what it's like and and so it's still to this day, the product, the fans, the subscribers, which is something else we could talk about, how everything should be a subscription model if you can possibly make it one. um, but they still have a say in what the product is like. And there's a psychological principle there where people that feel like they have a say in what are helping you design a product, even if their voice isn't particularly impacting it, they're still more likely to be emotionally invested in your brand and in your product and continue being a customer. So it kind of tied together all those principles. And I had the Discord and all that, so people could go in there and interact. It built like a little mini movement. But yeah, it was all powered by very cheap Reddit ads. So,
That's super cool. So how long was it from initially running this ad to actually launching the first product?
3 months. It was 3 months.
Okay.
I got enough pre-orders to roll out the very first product, but true scale didn't happen for another 6 months because, like I said, you have to lay all that foundational work for scale. Because if you don't, there's two reasons. One, obviously, if your costs increase at the same proportion, like Brandon, like you were saying, that's a big no-no. And then two, if everything just breaks, like say you get all these orders but you can't fulfill them, or whatever it is, if your supply chain breaks down, if your customer service breaks down. So it took me 6 months to solidify the supply chain, the customer service, the funnels, all the marketing automation. I mean, it's a big lift to get any kind of brand ready for true scale, to where it's like, okay, I'm going to really dump money into advertising. I'm going to bring on dozens or hundreds of new customers, per day or per week or whatever it is, and not have everything break down. You have to be ready for that. Now it's much easier. I mean, maybe not the logistics side of it in terms of the physical distribution, but if you have a digital product, you don't have to worry about that. But now you have AI powering customer service, powering your email build outs, your landing page build outs, your copy, your ads, your videos, it's so much easier to make all that stuff now. Back then, we were having to do it all with people. Um, Now a help desk can handle at least probably 60 something percent of the tickets, just AI or automation. So
Yeah.
things have really changed.
Yeah. What are these people you speak of? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's not that bad. But yeah, I mean, just as an example, like I have a customer support agent, AI agent for our company. Now, full disclosure, I just built it last week and it's in testing. But in terms of scalability, it can answer every single email because it's trained on all of our, it has access to all of our SOPs. It has access to all of our product info, our service info, our technology info. I mean, it knows everything about our company in a millisecond. That even if we had a team of customer service agents, it would take them 3 times as long to just reply to emails and inquiries. This robot can do it infinitely in milliseconds. That's crazy. Like that's really cool to me.
And your product margin just, obviously your company's, net margin just went up too, because now you don't have to
Yeah.
pay a team of customer service people and train them. And, maybe they don't work that day, or, they make mistakes, like you said. So it's definitely like a big shift in how stuff works.
Yeah. So scalability, the point there was that scalability is getting more and more achievable as tools and technology improve. For you though, after this 6-month window of accepting your first actual order, fulfilling your first actual order, into then you said about 6 months later you started to scale. What was that tipping point when you knew, okay, now it's time? And then what did you actually do? Did you dump money into ads? Did you go grassroots, guerrilla marketing? Like, what was the scaling process like?
So after I became ready to scale, we're highly direct to consumer driven, so it was a lot of paid ads, and I'm still a big fan of paid ads, not exclusively. I'm still advocating for making a real brand, a real company that really cares about its customers. But paid ads is if you have your funnels ready and all of your scalability ready, you can go from nothing to something super fast because it's a predictable money printing machine. If you're getting the ROAS you need, then all you have to do is just keep increasing your budget until you hit diminishing returns. Now, of course, it's not never that simple. You have to manage those ads. You have to have the creatives. You have to test. You have to do the copywriting. You have to split test the conversion rate optimization, the back end, etc. It never ends. But my point is, you can go up really quick. Um, to put it in perspective, that remaining 6 months of that year did 500,000 in top line revenue. So that year topped out at a little over 500,000 top line revenue. The next year, a little over 5 million. So 10 times
That's aggressive. Yeah.
in 1 year, and because the ROAS was there. Um, Plus, we were able to make some significant strides because we had the budget to build some exclusive products that were highly in demand. Once we were able to do that, and then we started being able to roll them out every month.
Oh, wow.
It became like a very sticky product for this hyper niche segment. Yes, but remember what I said: niche down, not up. And so, yeah, now fast forward over half a decade for this particular hyper niche product. Yes, maxed out the audience for the most part. But now I have a team. Now we have experience. Now we have a foundation. Now we have revenue, so we can start going left and right. That's where the adjacent markets, the adjacent products that you mentioned earlier, Brandon, come into play.
Yeah, and I assume you took the same approach to grow other verticals and other products.
Yep. I mean, it like you said, it's demand testing. We try stuff, and just because you succeed on one doesn't mean you succeed on the next one. We've had a lot of flops, and we're not as ready, fire, aim as we used to be. An expression I like to use. Now once you're a little bit more established or a lot more established, you can't demand test with something that looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint.
Yeah.
It kind of hurts your brand image. So, then it starts to become, usually it's a 5-figure investment to do even a really basic demand test because, you're paying staff, you're having to roll out something that looks pretty decent. So I burned a lot of money on a lot of failures still, but you learn. And you can't, one of the other things I say is you can't fail forever. So just don't give up.
Yeah.
I always tell people that don't give up.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that message too, and that's what it takes, right? To find the product that works. Because worst case scenario, you've invested however many 5 figures, but you've invested 5 figures and you find out it didn't work and you move on. Actually,
Yep.
that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you build out the whole business, the whole product line, everything, and you're 5, 6, 7+ figures into building it, and then you find out nothing works. So
Yeah, don't do that.
I'm a huge fan of fail fast.
Yeah, try to test some first.
Yeah.
But you can also make a mistake. You can get caught in. We got caught by we actually acquired a smaller company that had a really dedicated subscriber base, and we did demand testing, and it was an established, I mean, relatively established. They were small, but they had subscriber base. We did demand testing. There was demand for it. Built it out, and the scalability ended up being like so bad we ended up shutting down that product line. Like,
Mm,
yeah, it scaled, but it didn't, well, it didn't scale. It stopped. The market cap was like way lower than we expected, despite the fact that we had all these indicators that that was not the case. So sometimes you get blindsided, and
yeah.
thankfully it wasn't a six-figure mistake, but it was probably halfway there. So,
And they
um,
happen. But now
yeah,
we could talk about this all day. I'm sure. I
so,
love this stuff, and
yeah.
I know you do too. But we got to get out of here. But you have a gift for the listeners. Tell me, where should people find more about you, and what's where's the resource that you put together for them?
Yeah, if you hit up Victor Voss, VAUSS.com, and just punch in your email, I have a couple different free guides. One's about going nothing from something, but there's still some tidbits in there that you may be able to apply to any size business. There's another guide that is from my larger book called The Player's Fuel, which is about optimizing your mind and your body physically for best mental performance. And there's an email crash course, multi-day email crash course that covers kind of the holistic approach to business, which, in my opinion, is required to hit, probably even seven, but definitely probably eight. I don't know anybody that's scaled really past six without taking kind of into account a holistic perspective to health, wellness, um, mental optimization, that kind of a thing. So yeah, a lot of free stuff there. That this is basically all me paying it forward. I have my day job, my day business. This is just something I like to do.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on here, and I do want to echo that too, because we've had you are guest number 370. I've talked to a lot of
Oh
people,
wow.
all of the ones who have achieved success and actually have scaled businesses. They always focus on the rest of their life, the holistic approach, as you said. It's the mindset, it's the physical health, it's the relationships, all the other things that make you successful, not only as an entrepreneur but as a human being. You cannot overlook those in order to grow a business. So super cool that you put that resource together. And Victor, thanks for stopping by. This was a fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Brandon. It was great to be here.
For those of you watching, listening, wherever you are, all those resources are down below in the show notes or the description. Go check those out. We'll see you back on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious.
Another episode of Harmonious at Lunch in the books. I hope this episode made you think and you grabbed some actionable ideas to propel your business. Don't forget to like, comment your takeaways, and subscribe wherever you're listening so we can help more entrepreneurs just like you achieve harmony